Welcome to the Department of Government Efficiency, or as we like to call it, DOGE, headed up by none other than Elon Musk, our Chief Efficiency Officer and king of first principles thinking. You know, the guy who's busy launching rockets, digging tunnels, and now apparently running a government department focused on efficiency. Because if there's one thing government needs, it's a little more Musk. Today we're diving into what a Trump second term might mean for business. What could it look like if Elon's first principle get stuff done mindset met Trump's fast-tracked business-first policy? From looser regulations to fewer environmental restrictions, we're breaking down the sectors that could soar and the ones that might have a rough landing. Let's talk real-life examples, keeping the jargon in check so you know exactly what's at stake here. Spoiler alert, there's a lot of opportunity, and maybe a few headaches too, so buckle up. DOGE is on the case, helping you navigate this wild policy landscape with insights, a bit of humor, and just enough hype to keep you sharp.
Some of the president-elect's advisors have suggested that you should resign. If he asked you to leave, would you go?
No.
Can you follow up on, do you think that legally you're not required to leave?
No. Let me say that in the near term, the election will have no effects on our policy decisions. As you know, many things affect the economy, and anyone who writes down forecasts in their job will tell you that the economy is quite difficult to forecast looking out past the very near term. Here, we don't know what the timing and substance of any policy changes will be. We therefore don't know what the effects on the economy would be, specifically whether and to what extent those policies would matter for the achievement of our goal variables, maximum employment, and price stability. We don't guess, we don't speculate, and we don't assume. Now, just in principle, it's possible that any administration's policies or policies put in place by Congress could have economic effects that over time that would matter for our pursuit of our dual mandate goals. So we, along with countless other factors, forecasts of those economic effects would be included in our models of the economy and would be taken into account through that channel.
Imagine you're the CEO of a major tech company. Under Trump's second term, you want to expand by acquiring a competitor, which would let you offer an even wider range of services. Well, with fewer restrictions on mergers, it's now a lot easier for companies like yours to grow through acquisitions. For example, think of a company like Amazon. Under a second Trump term, Amazon might have an easier time buying up smaller tech firms to expand its portfolio without as many antitrust lawsuits. This could mean faster growth, more market share, and potentially less competition if smaller companies struggle to keep up. But this isn't all good news. Without much oversight, consumers might end up with fewer choices and higher prices because the competition just isn't there to keep things in check. So while big tech companies may love this policy, smaller businesses could feel squeezed out. Now, let's say you're in the oil business. Under Trump, fossil fuel companies could get a boost from more drilling rights on federal land and reduced regulations. That's huge if you're in this industry because it opens up opportunities for growth at a lower cost. For example, companies like ExxonMobil might be able to drill on more land without waiting years for government approvals. But if you're in renewable energy, like a solar panel manufacturer, this could make it harder to compete. With fewer incentives for clean energy, demand might fall. This means companies that have invested heavily in solar or wind could see fewer government grants and maybe even a dip in customers. So, oil and gas get a green light while renewables could face some serious slowdowns. Now picture yourself running a restaurant chain. You've got hundreds of employees, and with fewer restrictions on overtime and healthcare plans, you could potentially lower your operating costs. For example, changes to healthcare rules could mean you can offer a cheaper insurance plan, saving the company money. And remember Trump's idea about no taxes on tips? That's a game changer for service industries. Employees keep more of what they earn, and you, as a business owner, might attract more skilled workers who want to earn tips tax-free. But be cautious. While fewer rules can mean more savings, it also means less protection for workers. So while your business might be saving, employees may feel the strain, and that could impact morale. Alright, now you're a small manufacturer making parts for electronics, and you source a lot of your materials from overseas, especially China. Trump's second term could bring in even higher tariffs on these imports, which are taxes you pay on goods you bring in from other countries. For example, if you're sourcing microchips from China, those tariffs could increase the cost of each part. Now, you're faced with two options: find a supplier closer to home, which could be more expensive, or keep buying from China and raise your prices. Either way, your costs go up, and you're caught in the middle. But if you're a company that sells made-in-America products, this is a golden opportunity. With more tariffs on imports, American-made goods look more attractive, and your business could see a jump in sales. So while tariffs hit some companies hard, others might thrive by focusing on local production. Finally, let's say you're in the finance world, maybe running a fintech company developing new digital banking tools. Under Trump's second term, fewer regulations could make it easier for you to try out innovative products like a new payment app or loan service without as much red tape. Think about a company like PayPal or Cash App. These companies might be able to launch new features faster, attracting more users. But keep in mind, while less regulation means quicker innovation, it also means riskier investments. With fewer checks in place, some fintechs could push boundaries that lead to bigger financial issues down the road, leaving customers and investors on the hook. And if you're in a heavily regulated state like California or New York, you'll need to keep an eye on local laws. States with stricter regulations may enforce their own rules, which could mean a patchwork of regulations, adding some confusion for companies looking to expand across the U.S. Imagine you're in real estate, and the government just passed a policy that benefits your business. But wait, a court challenge means it could be months before that policy actually takes effect, or it might even get blocked. This happened recently with policies around taxes and the Affordable Care Act, and under Trump, we could see even more court battles over new rules. So, even if a policy looks good for your business, be prepared for delays. Real estate companies, for example, could see changes to tax breaks, only to be left waiting on final decisions if the courts get involved. Trump's second term could bring big changes across the board, with less oversight, fewer regulations, and a focus on boosting American businesses. From tech to oil to retail, each industry faces unique opportunities and challenges. Some may see a chance to grow, while others could feel the pinch from rising costs or increased competition. As we move forward, staying adaptable will be key.
Move to see a day in which the Dow's up over 1,000 points, the S&P 500 is up some 2%, but the bond market is moving in the other direction. We're looking at a 4.5 here as of this moment on the 10-year.
Yes.
What do you make specifically of the reaction in the bond market? This is clearly in anticipation of some sort of inflationary event.
Well, here's the thing. When I was talking with investors and clients, as I do, that's most of my day job.
Yeah.
The simple question is, what happens if Harris wins? What happens if Trump wins? And my initial read, very simplistic terms, was Harris, bad for equities, good for bonds. Trump, good for equities, bad for bonds. And that related to the fact on where I see growth and also how the market initially would react to things. So, for example, with Trump, equities are up because the market's more excited about growth, lower tax rates, less regulation, et cetera. Mm-hmm. But the bond market gets worried about more spending, tax cuts, et cetera. And like the CBO, for example, they're going to initially probably score a Trump budget as being, more deficit-related spending. The Tax Foundation found that. The problem with it is that we don't know the specifics yet. And I'd argue if you look back at the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017 and you see what CBO scored, the revenue numbers in 16, we actually got the money in 18. In other words, the tax cut paid for itself. So I think these are knee-jerk reactions, and then we'll see what happens once we get some meat to the bone. Mm-hmm.
Well, so as you consider the timeline you just said there, knowing that there was $8 trillion in deficit added during the first Trump administration, the Committee for Responsible Budget says it could be another $15 trillion, if not all of it pays for itself. But it is a question of time, especially knowing these markets are discounting mechanisms. They are looking well ahead. So when we consider sequencing here, things like tariffs, that could potentially hit the economy first before the actual beneficiary impacts of lower taxes is fully felt and recognized in corporate profits and the like, right? How should we think about the way in which this plays out?
Right. So you're absolutely right. Markets are forward-looking, and they may fear or they could think that, okay, tariffs are inflationary. It's a one-off price adjustment. But again, it would be how are the tariffs implemented? And what would the U.S. be getting in return? I think there's this misperception that day one of Trump, we're going to have tariffs across the board, X%, and this is my guess,
Yeah.
and in China it's going to be at least 60%, maybe higher. To me, it's going to be more nuanced. It's going to be very transactional. In other words, tariffs are going to be used in large part as a tool to essentially have more fair trade. So, for example, the U.S. has certain environmental regulations and certain rules against child labor. Some of our trading partners don't have those same rules, and we're at a disadvantage. So, to the extent tariffs can level the playing field and make trade fair, I think that makes sense. Also, it would depend, too, what happens with energy policy. If we have a significant amount of drilling and energy production, that will offset the tariffs, even if the tariffs, for argument's sake, were implemented across the board.
Yeah.
The energy share of the economy is bigger than the import share of the economy. So it really depends how it's going to be put into place. And I always tell people, look at things, the broad policy set. Like, don't focus just on the tariffs.
Sure.
Don't focus just on the tax cuts. Look at the holistic approach in terms of trying to increase productive capacity.
I guess a simpler way, though, of asking my question would be, are we likely to feel the inflation before we feel the growth?
No, I don't believe so. I don't believe so because if energy prices stay low, that will immediately hit people's pocketbooks in a positive way. Prices will come down. The general rule of thumb is every 1 penny change in gasoline is worth about $1 billion in terms of an energy tax cut. So if you get prices down 50 cents, may not seem like a lot, but in a $25 trillion economy, that's basically like a $50 billion tax cut immediately.
Thanks for tuning in. Remember, knowledge is power, and with Doge, you've got the edge. Want more straight-to-the-point insights without the fluff? Follow us for quick, powerful knowledge drops that keep you ahead of the curve. From the latest policy shifts to business strategies and beyond, we've got the know-how you need, delivered fast. Subscribe now and stay sharp.